The narrative going into this fight is that Ciryl Gane is the smart pick. That Pereira is too small, too old, and way too reckless to beat a natural heavyweight with elite movement and a jab that never stops. I've seen it everywhere, and I don't think that at all. I think people have this completely backwards, and I think there are things about this matchup that nobody is talking about right now that make it genuinely dangerous for Gane. So let's get into it. Let's start with the striking, because this is where this fight actually lives and dies. Everyone is talking about Gane's movement like it's an unsolvable puzzle, and the footwork is real. He bounces laterally, uses a pendulum step to stay on the outer edge of the pocket, and that jab keeps everyone at range. He dismantled Derrick Lewis with it. He outboxed Francis Ngannou for 3 rounds before the wrestling swallowed him up. The system works, but here's what nobody is saying about that system. It completely depends on open space. Gane needs the center of the octagon to function. The moment you take that away from him, the whole machine breaks down. And taking that space away is exactly what Alex Pereira does for a living. Pereira doesn't chase guys. He doesn't run forward swinging wildly. He marches in with a low guard, feinting with the lead hand, cutting off the cage at angles, hurting his opponent toward the fence. Every fighter who has applied that specific type of methodical pressure against Gane, John Jones, Gane's movement fell apart, not because he got immediately hurt, but because the cage got smaller and there was nowhere to pivot to. Ngannou wasn't even a technical pressure fighter. He just walked Gane down until the footwork failed, and Gane surrendered his back just to stand up. Jones put him in a guillotine in 2 minutes. Pereira is a more precise and patient cage cutter than either of those men. And there's something about Gane's jab that people are getting wrong. The jab is a serious weapon, but it has never stopped a pressure fighter from closing distance. Every single forward-walking opponent Gane has faced, Ngannou, Lewis, even Tuivasa, they all got inside it eventually. Pereira will too. And Pereira's approach is different from all of them because he throws that calf kick while he's closing. Low, sharp, no hip rotation telegraph, devastating to accumulate. And Gane's wide bouncy stance is the worst possible stance to eat that kick in. The peroneal nerve sits right where Pereira's shin lands. You do that 15 times to a man whose entire game requires healthy footwork. And by round 3, that wide bouncy stance starts to go flat. And when Gane goes flat-footed, he's no longer a puzzle. He's a target. Now, let's address the power question everyone keeps avoiding. Can Pereira's left hook actually travel up a weight class? He's walking into this fight at 249 pounds. That's not a rumor. That's from his own interview. He plans to weigh in at 242 pounds. A man who once competed at 185 pounds is now walking around heavier than most natural heavyweights. So when people say he's too small, look at that number and look at what that left hook has already done to world-class opposition. It knocked out Sean Strickland. It shut off Jamal Hill. It knocked down Israel Adesanya twice in one fight. The only fighters to survive it are the ones who either wrestled Pereira down or moved extremely well. Gane is one of those movers, but Gane has been knocked down clean on the feet before. Tai Tuivasa dropped him in round 2 at UFC Paris with a looping overhand right. And Tuivasa is not a precise striker. He doesn't feint. He doesn't set traps. He just swung and it landed. Alex Pereira is the most precise striker on the planet at any weight class. Gane has never been hit by a left hook from a man who times shots the way Pereira does. Not once in his entire career. The Tuivasa knockdown was an accident. A clean Pereira left hook is a calculated execution. 3 now the weight jump. This is where Pereira's biggest question mark lives, and people need to take it seriously. His kickboxing rival Artem Vakitov, the last man to beat Pereira in glory kickboxing, has publicly said the weight gain will slow the rotational speed that makes that left hook so lethal. And here's what makes this story different from just outside commentary. Vakitov isn't watching from the sidelines. He's inside Gane's camp, right now coaching specifically for this fight, using everything he knows about how Pereira generates the hook to build a game plan around disrupting it. The man who solved Pereira's timing in kickboxing is literally teaching Gane's team how to replicate that solution. That is a massive angle nobody's covering properly. But here's the counterpoint. Pereira said the weight gain has been entirely natural. No forced diet protocol, just eating well in the mountains of Brazil on Glover Teixeira's farm, then cleaning it up for fight camp. He's also brought in heavyweight sparring partners, including the massive 6 feet 7 inches Taliesin Teixeira, to simulate Gane's size and reach. He is not walking into this fight without heavyweight-specific preparation. And Glover Teixeira, who trains him every day and is a former heavyweight himself, has publicly said this is a good matchup for Pereira against Gane's style. For now, let's talk about the one finish scenario nobody wants to discuss. Ciryl Gane has an eye poke problem, and I'm not saying this casually. This is documented. It is ongoing, and Gane himself has confirmed heading into this exact fight that he has no intention of changing anything. At UFC 321 last October, Gane double-poked Tom Aspinall in both eyes at 4 minutes and 35 seconds of the first round. Aspinall couldn't see out his right eye, and the fight was ruled a no contest. Aspinall later revealed he was diagnosed with bilateral traumatic brow syndrome, a documented injury to the tendon structure around both eye sockets. He needed surgery on both eyes and has been medically sidelined for months. In Gane's response when asked if he would change his style before fighting Pereira, his exact words, "No, unfortunately, this happens at like every event. This is not something special." He has no plans to change anything. And here's what makes this genuinely alarming for this specific fight. It's not just Aspinall. Go back and look at the pattern across Gane's entire career. Strikes to the back of the head against Spivak. Back of the head shots against Dante Mace. Back of the head connections in the Tuivasa fight. Punches to the back of Derek Lewis's head when Lewis was covering up on the ground. A low blow against John Jones before the guillotine finished the fight. And Junior Dos Santos, a former heavyweight champion who fought Gane personally, also had his own fight with Gane end in a no contest due to an eye poke back in 2020. These things follow Gane wherever he goes. Now add Pereira to this equation. Pereira walks forward constantly. He closes distance aggressively and repeatedly throughout every fight. Gane's instinct when pressure comes is to extend that lead hand to frame, push, and create space. That exact framing hand is what put Aspinall in surgery. And during the White House visit ahead of this fight, Gane appeared to make a finger-pointing gesture toward Pereira's eyes that went viral. Whether that was a joke or a psychological play doesn't matter. The point is, the pattern is real, the risk is real, and Gane himself is not pretending otherwise. If those fingers land on Pereira's eyes clean, and given how aggressively Pereira closes distance, the probability is not small. This co-main event at the White House could end in complete chaos in front of 4,000 live fans with 85,000 more watching from the Ellipse Park across the street. 5, let me give you both paths in this fight. If Pereira wins, it happens in round 2 or 3, not round 1. Pereira is a slow